Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talk Albion with myself, Matt Wild, and joining me tonight is my son, Josh Wild. Hi, Josh. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, thank you, Dad. I'm doing very well, as
Good.
always. How are you?
It's great to see you again and to talk things all Albion with you.
Yeah,
So let's get things on the go. We've got lots to discuss tonight, and first up is our last couple of matches and our last couple of performances in particular. Going back a couple of weeks ago now was our match against Fulham, which ended 2-0, as we all know, to Fulham. What were your thoughts on that game, Josh?
I thought it was dreadful.
Yeah,
It's for a must-win game. It didn't really turn out the way we were hoping for. But that's life, isn't it? That's part of the fun of being a West Brom fan. Is when you think you win, you lose, and when you think you're going to lose, you get a result. So, yeah.
It was an incredibly disappointing performance all round. I think we all went into the game with high expectations on the back of a couple of real good, decent performances from the players. Watching the match, even Slaven Bilic looked downhearted. He didn't seem to be his normal self, and it just showed on the pitch. I can't pick out one single player that put in a shift or put in a performance.
Yeah.
Fulham turned up. They scored. Certainly, their second goal was an outstanding goal, really. But I can't think of one moment that we even threatened on the goal or even looked at getting back into the match.
Yeah.
Highly disappointing team performance all round. Really.
Yeah.
I think we all felt the same way. Certainly, every Albion fan I've spoken to echoes that opinion on that particular match.
Yep. No, unfortunately it does. And just looking at the stats here, we had a total of 10 shots, which you think would be really positive, but we only had one of those shots on target, which is a bit concerning. And I think from the get-go, when I saw the lineups and I saw the formation we were playing, having the Pereira on the right has never really worked. And we saw that in the Brighton game. As soon as he was put into the middle, we created so many more chances and we got Grant his goal. And I feel a bit silly saying that Grant was going to score a hat trick, and then we only had one shot on target. Barely had 3 shots on target, let alone 3 shots from Carl Grant. So I don't understand how we can go from such a positive second half in that Brighton game with players playing really well in the positions that we had to completely going back to how we were in the first half in that Brighton game where Brighton were on top of us.
That's right. So that was Fulham. Again, disappointing result and performance all round, which brings us on to our performance last Sunday against a Tottenham side that were gunning towards the top of the Premiership with a win over West Brom. So obviously a quality side that Jose Mourinho is melding together there down at Tottenham Hotspurs, and obviously this was going to be a tough task, but I think everyone was looking for a much more improved performance than what we witnessed against Fulham, and I think we've seen it. I really do think we've seen it, because for 85 minutes of the match, we were more than competitive with Spurs. The manner we conceded again was unfortunate. Johnson was having a brilliant game as far as I was concerned, and one can only think that if he'd have stayed on his line, then he would have quite easily have saved the header from Harry Kane. But he seemed to have got caught flapping in the middle of no man's land in between the defender in the goal line, and the ball looped over his head for Spurs winning goal, unfortunately. But how do you rank our performance in that match, Josh?
I think that was probably one of our better performances we've had this season. I mean, obviously, this Tottenham team has been full of goals that absolutely destroyed our next opponents, Man United, 6-1 in their own backyard. And Human Son and Harry Kane have been scoring goals for fun. So if they haven't been in your fantasy team, you probably should get them in there. But I think we were able to defend well against them. I mean, stats don't say everything, but they had a total of 19 shots, but only 5 on target. So it just shows that we were doing a lot better than we have been in previous games. But I think with a team like that, we were set out to defend, and I think we did well not to embarrass ourselves. I think a lot of people out there, a lot of fans were expecting a loss, but one with a lot more goals in our net. So I think the team did us proud, and we're unfortunate not to get a point, maybe 3 points out of that game. But I was things were looking up from that game.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the media and all the fans across the country were expecting a heavy defeat that last Sunday for the Albion, and we was really highly unlucky. Again, disappointing result. Much more improved and optimistic performance that we fielded, and felt even though we lost, the only disappointment I had was the result. I wasn't disappointed with the shift or the performance that the players put in that day, and Slaven Bilic looked much more animated and much more back to his usual self. Whether the sale of Hegazi was playing on his mind for the Fulham match, and there's been a lot of press coverage about that, how he even said in his press conference how disappointed he was. But, you know, it is what it is. We've lost Hegazi now, and we're trying to look towards our first 3 points of the season. Now, prior to this Tottenham match, we was all crying out for Piera to be put in the middle of the park, and the team selection that Slaven Bilic made for the Spurs match left everyone bewildered, to be honest, until news broke that Piera and Ivinovic had actually contracted COVID-19. So it was a much changed formation and much changed side that we fielded against Spurs from what our expected 11 should be. But nevertheless, they really did give a good account of themselves. So I'm really proud of them. Really proud of the performance and the result, to be honest. 1-0, it definitely wasn't an embarrassment by any means.
No, definitely. I think the team did well, because we don't know when they did contract the coronavirus, so it could have been on the day that they found out. So they did really well to adapt, and without our sort of main chance creator on the pitch, I think we did okay. And obviously Ivanovic he's proven to be a great defender for us, especially in games like, I think it was Burnley and Brighton as well. He really helped us control the game a bit better. So without him in defence, it did weaken our side a little bit, but I think the team managed to rise to the occasion a bit better than I think a lot of us were hoping for.
Definitely. And again, Conor Gallagher in the middle of the park put another dynamic 90 minutes in for us. He's looking like he's really beginning to settle down now, and being part of the first team regular in the starting 11, which is great to see. What I would like to see more in our performances in the middle of the park. There was a few instances on Sunday and in previous matches where I felt we need a ball winner, someone who can actually get the tackle in, win the ball, and just pass it out to one of our playmakers. I think that's something that we're desperately missing at the moment in our team. Is a ball winner in the likes of a Derek McInnes type of player who's not afraid to go in and actually win the ball. I noticed Jake Livermore on a few occasions on Sunday. Now, I'm not knocking his performance overall, but it just seems like every time he went in a tackle, he gave a free kick away. Wasn't actually able to just get the ball off the opposition and pass it to one of our wide players or one of our more creative players who can help us break and counteract the Spurs or of the team's attacks against us. So I'm looking for our future performances and matches. I'm really looking to see where we can get a ball winner from in the middle of the park.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like when Leicester, when they won the league that year, they had that N'Golo Kante breakthrough season, and he was a really good player, like an example of a person who could win the ball back and start playing from the get-go. So I think if we can somehow find a player like that in our club, we'd stand a better chance in this league. But it's just, where will that come from? It could be from one of the younger players, could be from a player that we haven't seen much of this season, but hopefully we can find it soon.
Definitely, but like I say, all players all round really did do well, and it was a performance to be proud of, despite the result. So after the back of those two results against Fulham and Tottenham, we fortunate enough that again results are going our way. We're currently sitting 18th in the table with the 3 points. In 20th position is Sheffield United, again on 1 point still. They're still without a win in the league. Then we've got Burnley in 19th position. They're on 2 points.
Yeah.
Ourselves on 8, again still without a win. Fulham on 17th with 4 points.
Yeah, and they only overtook us. Only overtook us because they beat us, and we could have been a bit clearer, but unfortunately that wasn't the case.
That's exactly right. Looking a bit further up the table, we've got Brighton and Albion, who we've also played and drew against. After 8 games, 6 points. We've only 1 win under the belt. Then we've in 15th place, we've got Leeds United. Slightly bigger jump now to 10 points. And then in 14th position, our next opponents away to Manchester United, who are also sitting on 10 points. So looking forward to Manchester United, Josh.
Yeah, I am.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think we've shown in the past that when we're having a bad run of games, Man United always seems to come about, and we always tend to get a result there. I think the year that we went down in the Premier League, when we beat Manchester United, that was like one of our only games that we actually managed to get a win that season. So I think if we can go there all guns blazing, now's the perfect time to play Manchester United, because they seem to be having a lot of squad troubles. And they're very inconsistent with their results. So whenever they get a good win, they'll always lose the next game, as from what I can tell. So I think this could be the perfect time for us to really come together and take down a top side and get some points down.
Oh, definitely. I think the inconsistency of Manchester United and their performances, and that gives us something to cling on to. It gives us certainly we don't need to be afraid of them. They're not the same team as they used to be. I think we can go there. Certainly, if we play with the same attitude and the same passion as we did against Tottenham, then we're well capable of getting a result from Old Trafford, either a draw or, again, as you said, come away with all 3 points, providing that we don't get any more players get isolated through COVID-19. And of course, we had some more breaking news today in that Robinson is also now isolating and has been returned from the Ireland squad due to correcting COVID-19. So there we have 3 players already that are on isolation.
Yeah, and 3 in our starting 11 as well, which is a bit concerning. But then I think it does also bode well for players such as Grzycki, who is who's now on Poland duty, to maybe come into the squad and do a good job there. But I think it is a bit concerning now that we've got 3 first-team players out with COVID, and it would be a lot better if they weren't there. And I think we'd stand a lot better chance if we had our full starting 11 or our main starting 11 there. So it is a bit concerning, and it makes you wonder why we're still having these international duties and other games that aren't really that necessary in this pandemic. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Like, we had, I think it was Cristiano Ronaldo get COVID in the last international thing, and then he would have passed it about to other players. And I think it seems a bit pointless really at the minute having these internationals, because it weakens a lot of the squad.
Definitely.
For teams.
Yeah. So if the match does go ahead in a couple of weeks' time, all being well, that the players are well enough to play, what's your score prediction?
Well, I think if we do win, it'll probably be a cagey 1-0 or a 2-1. I'd like the 2-1 because I like seeing goals. But I think if anything, it will probably most likely be a 1-0 win for us.
Okay. Well, let's see what the squad selection's like. I'm going for, again, a very optimistic 2-1 win to the Albion in a couple of weeks' time on Saturday, the 21st. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff for a change, which will be nice to see.
I'm tired of the Monday fixture, so it's good to be playing at a normal time.
Yes, definitely. So that's Manchester United. And last time we spoke, Josh was talking about our who would select for our West Brom all-time 11. And should we recap who last week chose for our goalkeeper and back four defenders?
Yeah, so last time we spoke about our obviously goalkeepers in defence, and we came to the conclusion that Ben Foster would be our goalkeeper. We'd have Brendan Batson in at defence with Moore, Macaulay, and we decided on Chris Brunt at left back because we weren't too sure who to put there, but we thought we'd bring in Chris Brunt, who is a proper legend of the club, and he played there quite frequently, especially in the sort of his end of the career with West Brom. So we put him in there. I'm quite happy with that as our defence. If only we could have something like that right now, it'd be brilliant.
Absolutely, definitely. So let's move on to our midfielders, and this is going to be quite difficult. I'm going to read a couple of names out to you now, see if these jog your memory of some of the absolute class and quality players that we've had playing for us over the years in the centre of the park. And here you go. So, of course, we've already selected Chris Brunt, but he did join us as a midfielder. But we're going to exclude him from this list as we've already selected him left back.
Yeah.
But some other names to mention in midfield. First of all, over the last couple of decades, we've got Zoltan Gira, Yusuf Malumbu, Jason Kumas, James Morrison, Richard Sneaks, Jonathan Greening, Claudio Jacob, Derek McInnes, Paul Sharner, Andy Johnson, Robert Corran, Ian Hamilton, and one of my personal favourites was Darren Bradley. Of course, in playing in our current squad, we've got Matthias Piera and Garner Grady. I think I'm going to omit the last two as they're still in their infancy in their West Brom careers, and we're still, I believe, yet to see the best of them, even though they did both have quality seasons last year in the Championship. I'm going to omit those two names at this moment in time until they've got a few more years under their belt for that reason. And also moving. Carry on.
I was going to say maybe if we had started the season a bit better, maybe they'd have managed to wangle their way in there. But I think I agree that it's best to have people with more than a season under their belt in the 11.
Yeah. And moving slightly further away we've got names like Ryan Robson, who made his name at the Albion before moving to Manchester United. We all know what he did for Manchester United and England. A name of Willie Johnson is also a big fan's favourite. Of course, we've got Tony Brown, very, very exciting player, one of my favourite players as well. And of course, who can forget the amazing Laurie Cunningham? So there's a short list of names that I've prepared for our discussion. Out of those names, who sticks out for you?
I think for me, being a very Generation Z West Brom fan, the names on the start of that list stick out to me. So I think my favourite player growing up for West Brom has always been Zoltan Gira. I remember we went to Crystal Palace away one year and he scored a diving header, and I was like, that's it, he's the guy for me.
That's right, I remember that game well.
And so I think for me, Gira is definitely going in this 11. I don't care what anyone says at home, Zoltan Gira is going in this squad. But also players like Morrison, who was with us for over 10 years. yeah, they stick out to me more than anyone else.
Yeah, I totally agree. Zoltan Gera, absolutely class player. I remember he was gutted when we sold him to Fulham.
Yeah,
And if I remember right, that Christmas I just got you the Albion top with Gera on the back, and then we went and sold him in January.
yeah.
Which
Oh,
was,
I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, Dad.
yeah. But then the prodigal son returned and
Yeah,
played with us for another couple of seasons,
yeah.
which was
And first
absolutely
came
fantastic.
back, stuck at top bins against Liverpool.
That's right. That's good. That's right. So, of course, Jason Kumas he was a brilliant player in his own right. James Morrison, as you mentioned, absolutely brilliant servant to the club. Um, Going back a few years, I think it was a slightly bit before your time. I mentioned him slightly earlier in the podcast. David McInnes, type of solid midfield player, great ball winner, great distributor of the ball.
Yeah,
For me, he's well, I've got him underlined on my list here.
yeah,
Um, Andy Johnson was again a great footballer. This is a real difficult list to choose four
yeah,
names out of. So I think what we should do is choose 4 players to be
yeah,
in the starting 11, and we're going to choose 2 to go into the subs bench.
yeah,
I just want to mention Darren Bradley, and who can forget the wonder goal that he scored in the amazing 3-2 win over Wolverhampton Wanderers all those years ago.
yeah,
It was one of the most fantastic games I had the pleasure to witness in person at the Hawthorns. It really was a fantastic game, and Darren Bradley's screaming goal was
yeah.
just one of my favourite goals of all time. So I really did want to mention Darren Bradley. We whittled the list down to Zoltan Gera, Morrison, Derek McInnes, Brian Robson, Tony Brown, and Cunningham. Who would be your starting 4? Who should we choose for our starting 4 out of those 6 players?
I think Laurie Cunningham should probably go in there. I think he fits quite nicely on that left side of the midfield. And I reckon I've obviously said Zoltan Gera is going in.
Yeah,
But I think I'd also put in Tony Brown and James Morrison in the midfield.
okay. Which would leave Derek McInnes and Brian Robson on
Yeah.
the subs bench.
You never know. Maybe we should put Brian Robson as the manager of the squad after his 2005 heroics.
Well, that's up for debate in a future podcast on who would choose as manager and assistant manager. Okay, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't go
Wouldn't go that
that
far.
far just at this moment in time. So Zoltan Gera, James Morrison, Tony Brown, and Laurie Cunningham make up our midfield players with Derek McInnes and Brian Robson on the bench.
Yeah.
What a fantastic squad this is turning out to be, and what a fantastic bench. I would love those 2 to be on the bench right now for us, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Very good, very good. So, Josh, that brings us to a close to this week's podcast. Thank you very much indeed for joining me again, and thank you everybody for listening to us.
Yeah.
If you'd like to join us, then please contact us on our Facebook page. Just go to Facebook in the search bar, type in Talk Albion, join our Facebook page, get involved, certainly over this lockdown period. We want to hear from you. We want you to be involved in this podcast. We hope it's fun. We hope we keep you entertained. There's always lots to talk about. And again, thank you all for listening. And we hope you join us again for our next episode after the Manchester United game.
Definitely. And if you're listening to this, why not on the Facebook page give us some contributions for our forwards? Because in our next episode, we'll be talking about who we'll put up top. Most likely, I think we're going down a 4-2-2 or 4-4-2 formation. So give us some contributions for our attacking options.
And if you agree or disagree with us on our selection so far, we'll put all the information up on the Facebook page shortly for you to agree, disagree, and let's talk about Albion. Thank you again for joining us. Good night.